Alright, how do I start this? I didn't plan on making a video, nor will it be a tutorial or the usual mech tournament stuff. I just started to work on a mech, and I remember someone stating in one of the comments of one of the video or stream, I can't remember which one, that it would be interesting to see the process of making a mech from zero without it being specifically for a tutorial, of just me making something. So I guess that's what I'm going to try. Hopefully people like this. I might cut it from time to time because I'm not really too talkative or there is nothing really interesting to show. Since I've started a bit already to work on it, I will go back real quick on what I've done so far, which is mostly place the different joint of the mech and naming them for when the script will be implemented to making it move. So let's just go over them real quick. First, a vertical hinge so that the leg can have a kind of like a butterfly joint to help them turn. An horizontal one for side step and also a wide stand. And then you just have a rotor for the classic leg movement. So hip going forward and backward, then you have your knee, then you have your foot joint, and another strafing joint to keep the foot parallel to the ground when the one on the hip is working. As for the name, TR for I usually don't use those, so I can't really I don't really know what the T would stand for. SR is for sidestep right. On the other hand, you have the left one, so L. And then HR, which would be hip right. The plus sign or minus sign that you see on some of those hinges are just for where they would go. As in, like, as you know, there is either positives or negatives for the rotor and the hinge. So this is to determine in which direction they would rotate, clockwise or anti-clockwise. Also, I just remember that the way I built this mech, I might have to redo it depending on where the hip would go, which in that case would be good since we're not too far into the building process. The script I will be using for this is a multiple script, in fact. I will be using Blarg for the torso twist, but that's a preference of mine. For the legs, I will be using MCS. Ah, yeah, that's what I was fearing. The reason why it does that is because I wanted to have the rotor head placed on the hinge directly, but as you know, with normal rotor, that's not really something that you can do. So I just pasted down a rotor head, and the problem with doing that is that the script is kind of confused, since it's not how it's usually supposed to be made. So I guess we'll be just remaking the other parts of the legs and do it in a more conventional way. I could just try to like reattach them normally with a few tricks, but like might as well since I'm filming remaking them from zero. Oops. Instead we're just doing this. Rename them. And now if I go into my programmable block and recompile, as you can see, they are both oriented correctly. Now as for the design of the mech, I usually rarely take references. I just tend to like try to go and see what works and what doesn't, what I like and what I don't. And the idea for this mech would be a big beefy dude with a shield. And I guess a few melee weapon. I mean big. You've seen how tall the legs were, it's not gigantic either. But it's decent size, it should be able to move fairly well. I might just post that on YouTube as an uncut version, but I'm not too sure. Since this mech, if I want to do it right, will take me multiple hours to make. Therefore, and I know I can be very... take my time while making some of those machines, so I don't know if I will make put an uncut version on YouTube or not. Because knowing me, that could very much be a 7-hour long video, if not more. Now, the reason why I'm pasting down suspension block right there is because the suspension block don't have a full hitbox. That part right here that I'm looking at is empty, like you can go through. So even though it won't protect this hinge, at least it's a nice cosmetic piece to hide all of the cable detail. It also gives it a bit more strength aspect. Doesn't look as feeble as it would be otherwise. But yes, those do not serve any purpose other than being decorative. Now, for the record, I am not using any mod in the sense that I have a build vision for quality of life perspective, but the hinges are vanilla, all of the blocks are vanilla. Therefore, once I'm done, if I choose to post this on the workshop, you could use it without any mods. Alright, let's just verify something real quick. Yep, works no problem. Now I'm going to assume that you are, you the viewer, familiar with what a programmable block is and how to use them. But if you aren't, what I just did was used what's called an argument. An argument for the programmable block is a command. So a script that is just a program that will call upon some functionality of blocks or aspect of the game. Usually not physics, but like you can ask, for example, a hinge to move a certain way, a piston to go on and off, start immediately, like trigger now, or start a countdown with a timer block. That type of stuff. And you can call upon what the program can do with those arguments. Therefore, when I typed in work, the script just started a work sequence without me using a cockpit. This may not sound important or sound trivial, but what it can be used and useful for is when you are trying to make drones with that script. Let's say, for example, that you have an AI and a turret block with a... how is it called? An AI with a turret block, and that the turret block is relayed to a camera. When the camera detects an opponent, it will send the signal to start, like you can set up an action via that. Therefore you have a way of detecting enemies, and then you can decide to start to walk in their direction, and with an AI block to just orientate yourself toward it. So yeah, that's pretty much how you can create blocks, and there are a variety of arguments for the script that I'm using right now, MCS. You can work forward, backwards, strafe, and plenty of other stuff. I might not use timestamp either on YouTube, simply because I don't know how. I will try to learn it at some point, but yeah, here, if it's the uncut version that goes on YouTube, you will see the painful process unfiltered. I just realized I've made a mistake. Now, a lot of people think that making a mech is a hard task. That's something that I see always during Twitch events, chat, stuff like that. I wouldn't say so. It's more that it's long. Because like as you can see right now, I am renaming stuff. But, I mean, outside of that, like the script is handling everything. Like, right now, let's say that I just build fit real quick. And then I will go back to the programmable block, oops, and typing the work command, which you don't even have to do. You know what? Instead of using the argument, let me just paste down a cockpit and just use that instead. That way, hypothetically, the only thing that you would have to do is just modify your yes, also my game is in French, my bad that one. Search for a script, search for MCS. Now MCS isn't out yet, but it should be out fairly soon. Then you just double click on it, it will be pasted here, you press OK, then recompile, execute. Now I use the argument start, but that's something that I tend to do. And yeah, MCS is very well built in the sense that it will tell you what could be lacking or causing problem. So right now it says no cockpit found. That is because my cockpit needs to be in main cockpit. Once it is, execute, and now my cockpit is recognized. Meaning that if I go there, as you can see, I didn't have to touch any of the hinges. No placement needed, no timer block, no nothing, just renaming them. And now I can choose to sidestep, I can choose to go forward. Ah, my foot on the right is wrong. Either I named it incorrectly or the angle is bizarre. Ah, yeah. Instead of naming it FR for fit right, I gave it the tag of the hinge. So yeah, sometimes let's say that like for some reason you made a mistake and your hinges are backward, for example, which can happen depending on when you on how you place them or whatnot. You can simply choose to change the sign. Like right now it's a plus, if I put that to a minus it will go back to having the knee in the correct place. And yes, you can make digitigrade mech, you can make spiders, you can make chicken-like legs. All of that is possible as well. Now I might go a bit over the custom data of the script, but right now let's focus on the most bare-bone aspect of it. So yeah, just by pasting in the script and naming it correctly, you already have a mech that is pretty much fully functional. Now, will it beat any record? No, it would be fairly slow, but at least you didn't have to bother with the animation, which is already a nice aspect. Now, while I'm looking at the fit, we will focus on another aspect, which is that people always struggle with those, either because it can be hard or they get destroyed on the ground if you have voxel damage on. there are a couple aspects that you can do, slash tips and tricks. If you want a fully vanilla option, you can always go with the wheel. Now, the two components of the wheel, so both the suspension and the wheel, have different aspects. A wheel, once it's attached to its suspension, will not take voxel damage. So let's say that I take a 1x1 wheel and orient it toward the ground as such. Right now the wheel wouldn't take damage, and you could just stand on the ground like that. After that you just manage the settings of your suspension. But turns out that the suspension block itself does not take voxel damage either. Therefore, what you can do is what I did just here, and either coat your the underneath of your feet in suspension block, or make them out of suspension block, or just add a few here and there that would just protrude out of the feet and make first contact with the ground. Now, something important to note is that even with the half block, it pretty much have the hitbox of a slab. In reality, yeah, you only have like, it will just go through the ground. So this is something that you want to account for, and either pace them vertically like that to have a full block of distance, or in such a way if you want a bit of variety. Many other ways that this time are all still vanilla is that some blueprint exist where the suspension is tricked into having a rotor head. Now, this is very interesting in the sense that it will give you the property of a wheel, even if it looks like a block. So let's say, for example, that I do something like this. Now, the reason why I'm using a subgrid to connect the two is because if you use a full grid, unfortunately the block will bug and it will just detach or do some nonsense. So yeah, this is not something that you can bypass. You need, if you want to connect two of those, use a subgrid. But now let's say, for example, that I extend my feet. Because this is connected to a what's it called? A suspension. The game considers it to be a wheel. So they won't take voxel damage, and if you choose to, for example, manage the friction of the block, it will have more adherence than a normal one. Now, the other way that you can make your feet don't take voxel damage and have variety of property, but in that case we'll just go with something simple. I currently have a mod called admin manager, admin helper. If I type the command /destructible off, now my grid simply will not take any damage. Subgrid, that is, because like, again, it's targeted precisely. Therefore, if I shoot the feet, no matter how much I try, I won't make any damage to it. But again, this is where this mod is interesting, because this is just the subgrid. If I do it on the main grid, as you can see, it just took a bunch of damage. Therefore, it's nice to have. And that way, you're free to do whatever you want with your feet, have the aesthetic that you want. Now, one of the interesting thing with this mod is that the way it works, let's call this feet a parent grid. So anything that I attach to it and emanate from it will be some kind of like child grid, so to speak. So let's say that I modified the state of the grid, therefore /destructible on. The wheel just popped out. This would be the case for a hinge or a rotor or a piston head as well. The reason why it doesn't detach from this part right here, those that hinge head and hinge, is because technically speaking the feet is the child grid of this part right here that I'm just going to color just so you can see it more easily. Whoops. So let's say, for example, that during the building process you want to make more of your grid invulnerable for some reason. If you choose, for example, to turn the body indestructible, now all of the rest will detach. Let's do a quick demonstration. If I turn this off, as you can see, I just lost both the cockpit that was on a rotor and the two legs. So yeah, this is something to keep in mind while using this mod. Now, do I encourage you to make an entire grid invulnerable? No. Can this be useful in some scenario or some cases? Yes. And in the case of the mech, it is very useful. Now we'll just keep on building. I'm going to focus on the torso now. It's far from finished, as you can see it looks absolutely like nothing. But I like to have a main frame, make sure that all work, and then focus on the design. Not always, sometimes I do the opposite and focus on the design first. But right now, since I'm not having any image reference, let's just go with something simple. Now, one of the things that I need to keep in mind is to still have enough space in here for the stabilization system. Something that I will expand on later on. Again, I'm not going to bother with too much of an exotic shape. A very blocky design will suffice. I'm already considering where I could place the stabilization system, which is why the mech all of a sudden have a prominent backpack. Now, if some of you out there have tried before to make a mech, you already know how painful it can be sometimes, if not most of the time, to try to make something that can self-right or is stable in general. There is a variety of options at your disposal to try to counteract that. I'm not going to go over every single one of them. Right now I'm going to go with one that isn't too compact, but tend to work most of the time. I mean, work all of the time, sorry, but have one problem, and that problem is with desync. If you go into a multiplayer world, you should expect to see it jutter around and do some funky thing with your creation. Now, will it be all of the time? Depends on the settings you put onto it. Sometimes it will do it, sometimes it won't. And there are some settings that can be changed in order to try at least to mitigate that. You could have your AI system in precision mode, not avoid collision, fiddle around with the torque power of the rotor that the system is on. There is a variety of stuff. that you can try. But since every mech tends to be unique, it is something that you might want to have slash do in every cases. But again, that can vary. Right now I'm basically building a gigantic gyroscope. Now the block that I've used in the gyroscope are the AI basic task and what were the name? And flight pattern. So yeah, what you need is basic task, so the one with the symbol of the planet, and flight pattern, the one with the rocket symbol on it. Now once I'm done placing the gyroscope, I will go ahead and set up the system, and I will go over an explanation of how this system works and why it needs all of that setup. I don't think it will have enough space to rotate fully, yeah, no. Alright, so let's modify really quickly. Now as for how it works. We go search for our AI. So the first block right here, the basic task. You want your AI to be on. Instead of following the player, you have it to follow origin. Now ideally you want to create a GPS coordinate far away. The Y is not important, I put it to 0, but sometimes it's nice to leave it as where you've made it when you create it from your current position. You're going to select that. After that we go to the other one, which is the flight pattern. Avoid collision off, AI behavior on, avoid collision, speed limit max, altitude max, angle to 1. Now it's still colliding with something, it seems, which if I had to guess would be the edge right there. So let's go ahead and make a modification. Now the reason why it's juttering from left to right like that is because the rotor is currently not set up to be both in override, shit, and not as strong as he is right now. There we go. And what's happening right now is also one of the cause of why it would be susceptible to desync in multiplayer server. Now, why that is, I have a few theory. If they are exact or not, I'm not too sure. Now, usually going for 100,000 Newton for the torque is good / sufficient, but yeah, as you can see already, big difference. And now, theoretically, if I did this right, yep, as you can see, it just wants to stay upright. Now, would I need to add more gyroscope later if the mech is more heavy? Probably, but we're not there yet. Oh, true, I forgot to explain why we put those setup. So, the AI, as you can see, have the option to align on gravity. Problem being that this option is not an action. It is a bonus that you can have while the AI is trying to go somewhere. But in order for it to work and align to gravity, it needs to perform an action. Now this is intrinsically tied to other type of stabilization system. For example, if you don't want it to turn, you could use a beacon on the grid just above, therefore it knows that it's pretty much there but still will align to gravity regardless. Problem with the beacon system is that for some reason it will lag when it's too big or when there are multiple instances of it in the same world. We have this setup right here, which is your run-of-the-mill gyroscope. The reason why it must be able to pivot is because currently the AI wants to go to that GPS marker that we set up before. But more than wanting to go there, it wants to look in that direction, meaning that if it was on a fixed grid, it will constantly look in that direction, meaning that you would fight your own stabilization system to look elsewhere. Which is why it's on a pivot, so it can look freely in that direction while keeping you up, stable. There is finally one last system where that one is a bit tricky because it's very sensitive, where you would have it placed in a certain position, and instead of following a beacon or a GPS coordinate, you would ask it to follow you. And if it's done correctly, knowing again that it's very sensitive, I might go over to it in another video or this one at some point, I don't know. It will follow you while not fighting you to just look in your general direction, while still aligned on gravity. But for now we'll be using that system, since it's one that I'm familiar with, work really well. Again, only downside being desync, which can be mitigated with fiddling around with the settings, either being the torque of the rotor, or having it in precision mode or not, that kind of stuff. Also sometimes just having less gyroscope or more, depending on what you need. Again, there is no... I mean, there are some aspects that are unchanged in mech building, but some of them you would have to fiddle around with and try out yourself in order to have something that works for you, with your specific design. I don't think I will go for an exposed cockpit. I mean, some people do. Me personally, I don't mind. I will show you real quick another trick, a simple one, but one that is nice to have. See how small this cockpit is? If you place a subgrid somewhere, yeah, I'm going to place it here, then I can just build on said subgrid. Let's just have it with inertia tensor on, locked, and hidden from the terminal since I don't need to see it. But then what you can do is like build a bit around and notably go into those places that you couldn't have before. Like, yeah, just like that. That way you maximize the space in your cockpit. Now, is it something that I would personally need in that case? I shouldn't, but maybe later, who knows. But yeah, let's say that you are trying to make a very small and compact mech, using subgrid to kind of fuse a variety of stuff inside of the cockpit and using that space to your advantage can be very useful. Speaking of internal component, let's place down our programmable block. Now I know that I would like to use at least 3 different programs, so I'm going to place down 3. We go back with MCS. There we go. Now my legs are working again. If I had to take a... Yep, that was why. It was stuck. More than broken. I just go in here, set it up as main cockpit. Execute. If the field here is empty, it won't execute. An important thing is that when you apply modification to some of the data in the script, so like step length, standing width, which I'm going to set up to 10%, if you recompile the script, let me just do that real quick, it will lose the data. As you can see here, standing width is back to 10% to 0%. So I just put it to 10%, and instead of recompiling, I just execute. And now, as you can see, I'm standing with a bit more of a natural pose. The other script that I'm going to use is Blarg. Blarg hinge steering to be more precise. There we go. For that you just need to apply that tag, minus or without sign hashtag steer. I should have renamed my torso rotor, my bad on that one. There we go. I could apply the hashtag directly, but I just copy it, might as well paste it. There we go. Now, steer by default is tied to your side-to-side key, so WD. But in my case, I want it to be tied to the mouse, and the mouse has 2 commands, pitch or yaw. Yaw being the vertical axis, pitch being a horizontal one, so you can, like, for a crane for example, the arm would go up and down if it's tied to the mouse. So yes, since our axis is vertical, here we want a yaw. Go back to our programmable block, where... There it is. I'm just going to rename it to know where it is. Blarg. And recompile and execute. Now, the reason why I like to use Blarg is because it has an auto straighten option. Right now it's not doing it because it doesn't have limits. For rotor you need to set up a limit, so for example let's say minus 90 degree and plus 90 degree. There we go. Just took its time. But now if I use it, like, I have no gyroscope to control the torso. I have those in the back, but they are exclusively used by the AI, and besides they are on a subgrid and I don't have a script to control them. So right now I'm just controlling the torso using Blarg, and as you can see I can look left and right, no problem. And then if I just leave it be, it will return back to its 0 just like that. So again, very nice feature, that way you don't have to fight your torso to look around. And having an auto straighten feature is always nice to have. One of the things that is very nice to have on top of that is a simple option to lock your torso. That way when you want to turn your legs, you can, instead of looking to the right, lock your torso and then use your gyroscope to look around. Now, the script have an option in order to use the legs to turn around. You know what? Let me make a demonstration real quick. Since it supports magnetic plates now you need to name them accordingly. And for that, it's simply magnetic plate, therefore M, and depending on the leg, R. Because in our case, it is the right leg. MR plus on all 4 of them. You can have as many or as little as you want. And here it would be ML plus. Oops. Just like that. Now, if we go back here, I'm going to hide a bit of the stuff that I have here. Gyroscope that are controlled by the AI, we don't need to see them. The light that I've used for making the gyroscope, you can turn them off and we don't need to see them either. As for the legs, I'm just going to make a full group of them as well. Just like that. Call it legs. That way I know where it is. And then simply hide it. That way we have a more clean UI. I'm going to leave the Mac plate here right now because at least I still have access to some custom data. Now they don't show because I haven't executed it, therefore they haven't been taken to account for the script, but now they are. And here I can access some of the different settings if I want to, including the turning length, which right now I will leave it at 15. So when I try to turn, as you can see, it's doing that movement to help turn. And for the turn length, why did I name that one ME? There we go. Turn length. If I exaggerate that number, then execute. Wrong key. Now as you can see, it's very exaggerated to such an extent that it's no longer usable. So 20% should be fine. Now, hypothetically, let's say that I go paste it back down, blow half of it in the process, get rid of the control rod. There we go. Now it's pasted on the ground. The legs could use a bit more strength, it seems. I just go into my group and let's go, since it's heavy armor, for 1,500,000 Newton, or 1.5 meganewton in that case. Now another important part is that, like, having a variety of hinges in what's it called? Shear inertia tensor is important. Maybe not all of them, but at least those that don't have a often used / high range of movement. So your strafing joint and turning joint, for example, to limit sway and moving, which he's still doing right now, but that's fine. Can do that for the torso torso as well, and of course you can have your entire leg in inertia tensor shared if you want. Is it necessary? In some cases it can be, in some cases it's not. It entirely depends on the user. Now my left leg is working, but the right one is still locked to the ground. Why is that? I've probably named one of them wrong. Which one though? Ah! There we go. And now as you can see, you can use mech plates to lock to the ground. And then you can just turn your mech using your key instead of using your gyroscope. I'm seeing that it's struggling a bit, but this is probably because I set up something wrong. Maybe one of them needs to be in the negative while the other one needs to be in the positive. That would be my guess. Let's try with that. Again, it's not a feature I use very often. No, never mind, it truly needs to be both in positive or both in negative. Maybe it just lacks power in that case to move the whole leg, since everything is inertia tensor. Let's try with a very strong leg. Yep, there we go. And as you can see, like you can turn very fast with that and still have fully independent control of your torso. So yeah, with that setup you wouldn't even need gyroscope for the mech to be controllable. I still would recommend having a stabilization system, because if the mech plates start to fail and you start to topple over, you wouldn't have a way of getting back up. And then yeah, you can absolutely like exaggerate a variety of stuff. Now let's, while I'm at it, let's explain a bit more of what I'm doing with the custom data. So on top right here you have a variety of number with a variety of name. Number 1 is humanoid, so if I go to leg type right here, you can see that I have 1, meaning that my legs are meant to be humanoid. Therefore the script will behave for humanoid leg, which is having knee forward, and with what you expect. Chicken walker is what I've done before, where the knee are oriented backward. Spideroid is something when you have more than 2 legs and they're oriented outside. On top of that, the structure of your leg would change. It would be, if I remember correctly, so you would have your hip to go side to side for the hip, since it is a spider. Then you would have the knee to go up and down. The feet would be what looks like the knee, and then you would have the quad with QR or QL for the rest. Crab is more of a side-to-side type of movement, if I remember correctly. Digitigrade, it looks like you have 2 knees or that you walk on your toes. Prismatic, I haven't tinkered too much with it. Just know that it is strange in the way that it works. And therefore, depending on the type of leg that you want, on top of making it, on giving it the correct structure, you would have to give it the correct number. Now for the rest, standing height. Let's say that I just augment it ever so slightly. There we go. It's just how much you flex your knees in your default position. For the rest, standing width. is how much the legs are apart for a more natural poses. Step length, how much distance 1 foot parkour from its resting position to where it's gonna go. So right now we were at 30%. Let's say that I go at 85%. I will both go faster and also parkour a longer distance. I forgot to execute the script. Ah, no, never mind. Okay, I thought it would be more... let me exaggerate that to some extent. Now it's going to give you an error because the step length is way above what it's supposed to be, but it's not going to prevent you from using it. And now, as you can see, my steps are longer, essentially. Another very nice thing that you can change is step height. So, how high your foot will go from the ground when in your walking motion. Good for clearance, especially if you have to walk other obstacles. Strafe length, which, as its name indicates, is how far you will strafe from left to right. To be fair, that number you don't need to change it too much. Crouch height. The more you exaggerate that, the more your crouch will be. But that's mostly when you have, for example, multiple knees, if you want that Gundam type of aesthetic. Because like, even if I leave it as it is... Ah, never mind, they changed it. So yeah, instead of 10%, let's go for 40%. There we go, now I crouch fully. Now you also have a jump option, but because my mech plates are activated, I cannot jump. This is where some of those arguments are useful. If you type in magnet, like such, I must have typed it wrong. Maybe with an S, I can't remember exactly. Ah, there we go. Now you can deactivate the mech plates or reactivate them by just clicking again. And now if I want to, I can jump. Again, you can crouch. You can even crouch walk if you want to. I thought my feet were set to be invulnerable. My guess would be that one of the mech plates were damaged to the point where it can be used. Or not. Maybe since I lost a few there we go. Another thing that you can change is the speed at which you're going. So let's say that I go way overboard for this, but oh well. With 2.5, I will just start bolting around. Now again, this is where it would be nice to have some gyroscope on the cockpit, because right now I'm going so fast that the mech plate don't have time to correct my trajectory, therefore even if I wanted to, I couldn't really turn. I mean, ever so slightly, but still. Now let's go back to our main mech and keep on working on it. No. I never tend to use butterfly joint, but maybe that would be a good occasion for once. That way I would have my arms. Some space for some pauldron of some kind. As for controlling the arms, MCS have a feature for this, but in this case I am going to use... I forgot a rotor in the equation. I'm going to use a script that I made recently. Since I'm not verified on YouTube, I will not be able to give the link in the description, but I will leave a comment with the link. And the idea of it is simple. After I've named correctly all of those different hinges and moving parts, I will have the ability to just pose them in a variety of ways. I'm just looking at my hand in the middle of doing this to make sure that I have most of the movement available to me. That would be up and down and side to side for the hand. There we go. So now I need to name all of those. Which, since there is still some rotor I think in there that do not belong on the arms, especially since I'm seeing this one. Ah, that one is for the stabilizer. Let's just call it ST and hide it. Let me just count the number of rotor that I have. Per arms I have 4, therefore I should see 8 here, which is the case. Nice. Do I have the right amount of hinges as well? 10 in total, I should see. Yep. So, that other script, I'm going to call it animator. Which is this one, animation maker. Now, the idea of it is again very simple. I will just start to... oh wait, no. I forgot to rename my stuff. You just have to name them move. This is the tag that the script will recognize. And the last thing is to give them a number so they all have a different ID. So like 1, 2, so on and so forth. None should have the same number, though. That is the condition. Was I at 4 or 3? Okay. And then on the other side, the exact same process. One of the things that this script does is that it stores all of its data in an LCD panel. Consider them like floppy disks slash hard drive. And if you name one of those, where is it? There we go. Anim store, and if you give it a number afterward, so that you can have multiple of them, you can basically have infinite amount of animation, since it will just go pull the data from here. Now, since our mech have 2 arms, I'm guessing that I will need quite the amount, so let's just go for that. I'm just going to make sure, because I gave them a space, but I can't remember exactly if they really need a space to work, or if the number must be attached. So real quick, I'm just going to make... Now the argument that I'm running is to save the current position, and then when I modify it again, so for something like that, I make a new photo, and then something like this, I make a new one. Now if I hit save, it will have make a new animation. But it did not. Wait, what? Okay, no it did, but... Oh no, I was in the wrong... Okay, so when you go in custom data, you can see how many animation you've made. Now, let's say that you've made a mistake. You can do undo. The last animation that you've made will be gone, or if you want, you have made a bunch of animation that you are not satisfied with, you can type in reset and it will delete every single one that you've made. Let's just go with a default pose for our mech. we go. Let's just double tap it just in case. Save. There we go. Now if I go here, yep. So now, when I hit, so to play your animation, they are all playable by using the prompt play, and then the number. Play 1 is the first animation I made. If I make a second one, it would be play 2, the fourth one would be play 4, so on and so forth. So yeah, play 1 is our default animation. Nothing too crazy. So as I said, I would like something that just uses big shields. For that, I will start to work on the arms first, before I make more animation. Because otherwise, I could try to start working on the animation, only to stuck myself in the process, because I made one a long time ago that doesn't correspond to the shape that I have now, and it will be problematic to say the least. Overall, the approach with that script makes you act a bit like a sculptor. Okay, I don't have the word. Someone who builds sculpture, or and yeah, in that case, or an animator, truly, since you have to go frame by frame, make your animation. I've used what is it called? Vibe coding to make it, since my knowledge for programming is very extremely limited, and I've tried before to make it so the program would try to understand what a... Oh lord, I'm fucking annoying with my pauses. Trying to understand what a humanoid is like and how it works. So, by just having a bunch of names and then trying to make pre-made animation. Problem being that, like, this was nightmarish, since ChatGPT couldn't understand for the life of it what a humanoid is and how it works. Therefore, even if it's harder, I think it's better this way, because at least you will have a much more precise control over what you want, do, and need, compared to if it was pre-made animation. And again, since you can just use these LCD panels as storage, let's say for example that you retain the same setup, so someone on the Steam Workshop would give you a photo of like his mech with the ID of his joint and then a video of the animation. If you replicate the ID of the joint, you could, just by using his LCD, replay the animation that he made. Therefore you could share animation between people. Or even, if not between people, another good aspect is that, like, let's say that you just made an animation that you're proud of. It took you hours to make, it's very complex, and you want to do something similar, if not the same, on another mech or construct, because again, I'm speaking a lot about mech, but this can work on ships, station to animate cranes, or just on factories for automation. You now have a functioning animation / blueprint that you can replicate around your different stuff. Now, the script is fairly simple. Like, for example, it doesn't use this piston. I've tried to make it so it could detach and reattach rotor heads. I've hit a wall for hours on end, because as far as I can tell, either the program was too fast or not using the prompt correctly, but it couldn't for the life of it attach the head if it wasn't so precisely placed, and in almost 100% of the case it would just miss and not attach it and keep on going with the animation and just mess things around. So these features was not added. Instead, during the prompt, so you see how I typed in play 1, you could have first the speed at which the animation will play by just spacebar after the number of the play and a number after it to manage the speed between 0 and 1. And then at the end of a play you can also add the name of your timer block, just like that, and it will activate at the end of the play your timer block. That way it's also less restrictive because you can pretty much set any type of action that you want. You would just need a timer block. Now, does that defeat the purpose of having something that would eliminate mostly timer blocks in order to make good animation? I think it's still fairly interesting, because in order to make an animation that would, like, I don't really have an example in mind, but let's say picking up a tool from your back, for example, in the case of a mech, which is something that I've done before with timer block. You would need the resting frame to be done, make a new frame per timer block for it to go, let's say, somewhere behind the back, then a new frame / timer block to go reach for the weapon, new timer block to grab the weapon and lock onto it. Now either make a new frame / timer block to have it go out so it doesn't just try to drag it through its body, and for that either you use an old one that you've made to go there in the first place or make a brand new one, then go back to resting place. And then on top of that resetting the value, because when you use that type of stuff, the timer block will set a hard limit, as in max limit, for example, it will set it to 30 degrees in order to stop there, but then you would need to reset the limit if you want to use it again. I'm not explaining it clearly and good enough, and I apologize for it, but this would be a whole nightmare of setup, which is why I tried to make this script and keep it simple. So yes, it doesn't have as many options as I'm sure some of you would like it to have, but at least by keeping it simple, most people will be able to use it, and it won't be as headache-inducing as trying to use timer blocks and whatnot. You know what? I'm making hands, but wouldn't it be funny if it had big, large hands that were part of the shield? I think it would be. At least that's how I envision it. So let's scrap the idea of the hand. That would be much easier for me since I won't have as many joints to manage, and I think that would fit the aesthetic fairly well. For the shield, let's go with something simple. Let's just go with that. And let's just expand on it. I'm curious to hear if you would be interested if I streamed on Twitch as well. That's something that I've been considering for a long time. But I don't know if it's really interesting to watch someone build in creative in Space Engineer. Because like in survival it's more fun because you see how they tackle problem and struggle with it as well. In creative, since you don't really have any trouble outside of just pure technical difficulty, you don't have the survival aspect in mind. I don't know if it would be that interesting. And honestly, the hands are kind of just vestigial at that point. Like I will make them so that they can grab something, but they won't. They would just have one articulation in the finger. I won't bother with something too complex. Let me add colors real quick, just so I can distinguish which one does what fairly easily. Okay, name it Walg. Walg. I can't even pronounce that instead of Blarg. Blarg. Yeah, I guess that's as close as I can get it. So let's go with this color for Walg. Let's go with this for Blarg, and let's go with green for the photo one. So this is our resting form. This is what we look like when we don't use our arms and when we are in a default state. Let's try to make a somewhat of a blocking animation. Since my arms would need to be in front of me, let's go with this. I might need to modify the shoulders as well, just so I can get a bit more movement out of them. At some point I will probably need to increase the strength of my arms as well. Now, one of the things that is also needed is to not jump the gun immediately, so to speak. Because, like, let's say that I was to just put them in blocking position immediately. They would try to go there even if it meant passing through obstacles. Obstacles being my own body. Therefore, it's nice to just take a bit of time, take a photo before, like, have multiple images to really make a good-looking animation. Trying to think. On what would be the best way of doing this. Now, another insight on how the script works. It will only use speed. Once it detects that you have the right angle to correspond to the frame, it will stop. Therefore, you don't have to worry about it locking blocks. And if it overstep, because it has gone too fast or doesn't have enough strength for that, it will try to go back as some sort of failsafe. Meaning that if you want to use some of those arms with a turret controller or another script, it won't prevent it from doing so. It doesn't also always recalculate the position of every block. It just uses them once it called upon them, and once it's done with the animation, it leaves them be. So yeah, you can pretty much use it with a turret controller and other script as well, without bumping into a compatibility issue. or one of them trying to override the other one. Again, I'm experimenting a bit right here, not gonna lie. But that is Space Engineer in one word, experimentation, pretty much. Other than engineering, of course. The shape of my arm is limiting the range of my movement. But that's to be expected. We are getting in place though. It's not bad, but that angle leaves me pretty exposed. Now I could either try to... I mean, I can try to fiddle around with the shoulder a bit more. But I will most likely have to increase the size of the shield as well. We're nearly there though. Yep, this is a lot of back and forth. Almost there. So yeah, not a mind-blowing design. I'm also a bit concerned that the stabilization system might not be able to hold on, since the arms are so large. But who knows? Maybe I built it well enough. too bad. Alright. New photo. And save it. There we go. So now I should have 2 animation. Yes. Let's go play the first one. Yep, they go back into place. I should really increase their strength though. And then, you know what, instead of just showing you the script, animation, there we go, execute, play 1 for the default pose, yes, play 2 for the shield. Right, hopefully this works. And something went... Oh no, never mind, I just clicked the wrong button. Oh, thank God. There we go. Simple as that. One of the things that you can do is also here, blend is basically, instead of waiting for a frame, just recompile it real quick. Oops. I needed to do that either way. Let me... make an arm group real quick. And I also lost my train of thoughts. Dang it. Yeah, sorry. Blending animation will start to play the frames before the precedent was finished, in order to have a smoother experience. And yeah, as you can see, like, honestly, didn't need timer blocks, didn't need to bother with writing down a bunch of values and number. I think this is a pretty good quality of life type of script. So yeah, we have our block. Let's work real quick. I might need to use timer block for the one I want to do. I want to do a right hook type of animation, but I want to put the torso into it. Problem being that the torso is used by Blarg. Now, the script won't override Blarg. I mean, the animation won't override Blarg, but Blarg will definitely override animation. That is something I'm certain of. Or I could simply not use the animation with the torso and just count on the fact that I will move manually the torso side to side myself in order to achieve that punching effect. And let me give a bit more strength to the torso real quick. Boom. Alright, let's work on that punch. We just go back here. Instead of play 1, we'll go for photo. Now, right hook. I need to prepare the arm in a way that looks somewhat believable. I might put them in inertia tensor at some point. The problem with inertia tensor is that they tend to try to move the whole structure, but I guess since I have a magnetic plate, that should be fine. This is what I feared. not, let's go with a different type of shoulders. Because also, since the bottom of the shield is going down with the block animation, might as well make them extremely tall. That way I will also be able to protect my legs. So yeah, it is a process, definitely, but one that I found very enjoyable. Seeing your machine come to life, it's very nice. Then the left arm won't be used a lot during the animation, so let's just make something that looks like he's preparing something. Like such. Let's save. There we go. Blocked by something. Ah. Always encountering more engineering problem. I could try to replicate that on the other arm, but to be fair, I'm right-handed, therefore I'm more keen to try to right hook someone than I would be to left make a left blow. Whoa. Stop. There we go. One of the things that I will do with the left arm, though, is definitely a grab. Right, let's exaggerate that posture even more. Do something like that. There we go. Photo and we save. There we go. So now if I do play one to put them back in place, and then if I do play 3 for that punch, you know what? No, because like the default speed right now is different, so time to show you what I meant by the speed. So if you write it that way, number space and then a number between 0 and 1, so it could be 0.25 for example, this will set the speed. Remember that you have 30 RPM, 60 RPM on both hinges and rotor. therefore 1 would be 60, where for example something like 0.5 or 50 would be 30. And we're gonna go for 1, so max speed. There we go. That way if I play it, nothing happened. I have 3. Let me guess, I called them play 1 instead of play 3. Play 3, 1. There we go. So now the rewind, the wind up did not work. Now either I forgot to save, but I directly want to go to the last frame. Oh well, unfortunate but no big deal. Animator, undo. There we go. So now if I go to play number 3, it's no longer there. We can make it again. Maybe try to do it a bit better this time as well. I would like to have some feedback on the script as well, because like I'm familiar with how it works, but not like I wouldn't be opposed to know how someone who never used it before feel about it. Save. There we go. I should have 3 animation again, yes. So play 1 to put them back in position. There we go. Right, hopefully this works. Whoops, wrong one. Wind up. Ooh, yep. There we go. Nice. And then back in place. Ask someone that you know who would do that with timer block or does that with timer block. Ask them how long it takes to make something like that normally. Oh man, I'm so proud. It works so well. Nice. Alright. Let's keep adding more. And then when I detach it from the pole, it just fell down because it's not balanced anymore. I said that I would make the shield taller, which is what I will do. Or you know what? Let me put them in guard position first. That way I have a correct idea of how much length they really need. Something like that doesn't seem too bad. There we go. think I will put all of them in inertia tensor on. How does that translate? Not too well. They need much more force. Let's go for 8 million Newton. Alright. Yeah, not too bad. Still some weight behind it. Nice. Go back to that. Yes. Nice. Yep, looks good to me. There we go. And yeah, if I go here, as you can see, like, it's not locked, nor is it trying to like fiddle with the speed. So yeah, you can definitely use it with something else on top of that. Now for that grab animation, maybe that would have been best if I did set up the torso. Yeah, maybe instead of a grab I will try something simpler. I mean, an elbow drop is out of the question just because of the sheer size of the shields. But, maybe something else? What could I use though? Because like I have the right hook. Do I just replicate the same or something slightly different on the other side? I guess I could. I guess I could try to go for something ever so slightly different. There we go. Take a new photo. Well, I guess we'll see how that goes. Yeah, sometimes you just click 2 times just to be sure that it saves the wind up. Because yeah, it seems to have some difficulty. Honestly, why bother? Let's just go with something simple. load up. Eh. Yep, see what it did there? That's why you need sometimes multiple animation. Now I think it should still be fine. Like, let's go do that real quick. And 4, and then with max speed. Yeah, that one is not. That one is not too good. Maybe I have an idea. Something like an uppercut. Let's see how it looks. Not bad. Let's go back to our default pose. Nice. Right, maybe a bit more strength in the arms. That should be good to go. Nice. It still has that bit of weight that makes it feels very nice. Feel very nice. And then yeah, it can pretty much transition correctly from one animation to another without too much difficulty. I think I will do one last thing, is to have the arms just move forward and backward in a walking motion. I mean walking. Like when you are walking, rather. Which, again, I know that you're creative. either by using a sensor, a timer block, or an event controller, someone can just automate that to working. Granted, I think I could if I wanted to, but like, I don't really want to bother right now. There we go. And now what I will do is use another argument that you haven't seen yet, which would be play. So in that case 5. Default speed should be fine, but I guess 0.15 maybe would be better. And then at the end, I can't remember if there is a yeah, no, okay, it's just that loop. That way, if I've done it correctly, yep, it just plays that motion in loop, and if you click again, it stops. Exactly where it was before. Okay, you know, it just takes a bit of time before it stops using the loop. Now, needless to say, let's save. Something that I should have done much more during the building process, I just forgot. That just reminded me. There we go. Ah. Okay, I must have written it incorrectly. Let me just add a few gyroscopes still in the cockpit. Even though they are not needed, that's something that I enjoy for a better control. Now, would that be enough? Honestly, I'm not even sure. I might need more or some prototype one. But for now, that will do. No, there is. There we go. Another thing when you want to have a stable mech is always have a few of them in override. That helps a lot. I don't have a source of power in the mech, I just remembered. Now, not that you would need a lot, especially since the mech just uses gyroscopes, which don't use a lot of power. Alright, let's see how he is when he's on his legs. Let me guess, the legs... yeah, no, the legs aren't in overrides. Override, there we go. I need more strength as well. Let's go for 10 million. There we go. Alright, work test now that it has more weight. I forgot that I still had on that version a fucked up backplate right there. There we go. Save. Let me hide some of those gyroscopes. If not all of them, actually. Now, all of that is our hands. Might as well name it that way. And don't show them. Arms, I don't need to see them anymore. Mag plate, I'm going to keep one showing. The rest hidden. That I don't need to see. I don't need to see those either. AI, it's nice to keep an eye on them, but they are not needed. Same for programmable block, but that's just out of a preference. Alright, work. Execute. Aha. What have I just done wrong? Modify the wrong mech plate is what I've done. There we go. Wait, no. That one is supposed to be left. There we go. That one is supposed to be right. Yes. Mistakes can still happen no matter how many times you've built a mech. Stability is good. Let's just make him a bit taller as well as a bit faster. Step length I'm gonna go for 145. Step height let's go for 20. Step speed I'm gonna go for 1.5. 4. There we go. Walk, execute. Now it won't break any record, but at least it's working well. And we still have all of our animation working. Yes, you can indeed crouch walk if you need to. Now granted my crouch right now is not very powerful because I'm only at 10%, so let's go for 30%, since last time it was too much. There we go. Now if I crouch, yeah. Not quite. Maybe a bit too much. Let's go for 25. Good enough. Alright, that seems to be good enough for me. I'm going to save it real quick, and let's just paste another one right after, just to punch it. Okay, I thought this would have taken me a lot longer than it did. 2 hours, I'm seeing on the recording, not too bad, for all of the things that I've gone over. Let me have the option to turn off my mech plate if I want to. There we go, that way I can turn with something that I'm more familiar with. But yeah, a good example of that, see how my feet are sliding against the ground? If you're not using wheels, this is what it looks like. If you were to use wheels, it would be lesser. One of the things that you could use to give yourself more traction when you have wheels as feet, you can use more mass, of course. You can also use a clank drive. It's something that I've used in the past for some mechs. I'm not going to show it here, but essentially, I just realized that I used the term clank drive, but not everyone might be familiar with it. A clank drive is a device that uses some of the buggy physics of the game to create force. Therefore, instead of using a thruster, if you use a clank drive, it will propulse you without the use of any types of energy, fuel, and costs next to nothing to make, which is why it's considered a bad practice. Using it to have a bit more grip on the ground and not to have more speed, I don't think it's too bad. But yeah, if you want a more natural work, or in the case of MCS, as you can see by using mech plates. Alright, let's see what it looks like. I'm expecting to destroy my arms in the process, but oh well. Wait, it was 3 parry? Oh, my bad. Yeah, I guess I'm... there we go. Oh, what are you... Oh! yeah, you can chain them as well. So let's say that I just hit all of them. It will perform one, then the other. But honestly, not too bad. Seeing that they are both made in heavy armor. Oh, I forgot. There we go. And there we go. So yeah, that will be all for me for now. Yes, this looks like a grey formless block. I might make another video where I detail it more, or not. I mostly focused on the internal and how I usually build a mech and the process that goes over it. So yeah, have a good one everyone, and see you around.